Young women arrived from the slave markets of Circassia, Georgia, and the Crimean steppes, their bodies appraised like livestock, their futures decided by imperial accountants who calculated breeding potential with the same precision they applied to tax revenues. This was commerce wrapped in ceremony, eugenics disguised as divine providence. 300 women, every single year. Every woman bore a price, carefully recorded in ledgers that tracked not just monetary value but physical attributes, estimated fertility, and potential political utility. Fair skin commanded premium rates. Youth was essential. Girls past 16 were considered damaged goods. Virginity was verified through examinations that reduced human dignity to a medical procedure, documented and filed away in archives that few would ever see. The bureaucracy of desire operated with chilling efficiency. This didn't happen in myth. This didn't happen in legend. This was real, documented, systematic. Behind the towering walls of Topkapi Palace, beyond the gilded chambers where sultans held court, lay a world that defied every Western fantasy ever spun about Ottoman luxury. This was not a realm of silken indulgence or romantic intrigue. It was an institution, calculated, hierarchical, and ruthlessly efficient. Here, faith became flesh, and flesh became the foundation of empire. The Ottoman imperial harem was never what European travelers claimed it to be. It was not a pleasure garden filled with willing beauties. It was a political machine, wrapped in religious justification and sealed behind doors that few would ever see opened. Within those walls, women wielded power that could topple grand viziers, reshape foreign policy, and determine the fate of millions across 3 continents. Yet their influence came at a price measured not in gold, but in freedom itself. To understand the harem's true nature, one must first abandon the myths. This was not about desire, it was about control. Control exercised through Islamic law, through carefully constructed hierarchies, and through a system that transformed human beings into instruments of dynastic survival. The women who entered these chambers arrived as slaves. Some rose to rule empires, others disappeared into silence, their names erased from every record. The transformation began in the 16th century, when the Ottoman Empire ceased its relentless expansion and settled into the rhythm of bureaucratic rule. Sultan after sultan abandoned the practice of leading armies into battle, choosing instead to govern from the capital. As the empire turned inward, so did its rulers. The harem, once a peripheral institution housed in distant quarters, moved to the very heart of Topkapi Palace. This relocation was not mere convenience. It was revolution disguised as architecture. For the first time in Islamic history, the women's quarters occupied a central position within the seat of power. The harem was placed directly behind the imperial council chambers, its corridors connecting to the sultan's private apartments. What had once been hidden became integral. What had been peripheral became central. The architectural shift reflected a deeper transformation in Ottoman governance. As the empire evolved from a warrior state into a sedentary bureaucracy, the role of royal women expanded far beyond the traditional boundaries of Islamic society. The harem became not just the sultan's household, but the empire's nursery, the place where future rulers were born, raised, and trained for power. Yet this evolution required careful justification. Islamic law, or Sharia, provided the framework that made such radical change acceptable. The Quran permitted Muslim men to take concubines from among their slaves, and Ottoman legal scholars expanded this permission into a comprehensive system of controlled polygamy. Slavery, they argued, was sanctioned by divine will. The women who served in the harem were not victims. They were blessed participants in God's plan for Islamic dominance. This religious justification masked a more pragmatic reality. The Ottoman state had discovered that slave women made more reliable mothers for future sultans than foreign princesses with their own political agendas. A concubine owed everything to her master and nothing to foreign courts. Her children would be purely Ottoman in their loyalties, untainted by external influences or competing claims to legitimacy. The system that emerged was breathtaking in its complexity. Every woman who entered the harem was catalogued, trained, and assigned a place within a rigid hierarchy that stretched from the lowest servants to the most powerful queen mothers. At the apex stood the valide sultan, the reigning sultan's mother, whose authority extended not just over the palace women but over the empire itself. The valide sultan controlled access to her son. She arranged his marriages, selected his concubines, and influenced his political decisions. When sultans were young or weak, she governed in their name. Her word could elevate a provincial governor to grand vizier or condemn a powerful pasha to exile. She embodied a paradox that defined the entire harem system: absolute power exercised from behind walls that few outsiders ever breached. Below the valide sultan, a carefully ordered world unfolded. The Haseki Sultan, or chief consort, occupied the second tier of authority. She was the mother of the heir apparent, the woman whose son would inherit the throne. Her position granted her influence over succession politics and the right to correspond directly with foreign rulers. Through her children, she could forge alliances that shaped imperial policy for generations. Beneath these ranks, hundreds of women filled specialized roles: teachers, household managers, intermediaries between the secluded chambers and the outside world. Each position came with its own protocols, privileges, and limitations. Promotion depended on skill, intelligence, and the favor of superiors. Competition was fierce, and failure could mean permanent obscurity within the palace walls. The records that survive from this period reveal an institution obsessed with documentation. Every woman's origins were traced and recorded. Her training was monitored and evaluated. Her relationships were catalogued and controlled. The Ottoman bureaucracy, famous for its meticulous record-keeping, extended this same attention to detail into the most intimate chambers of the palace. These documents tell a story that contradicts centuries of romantic fantasy. They reveal a world where human beings were sorted, ranked, and deployed according to the state's strategic needs. Training began immediately upon arrival. New slaves underwent months of instruction in Ottoman Turkish, Islamic law, palace etiquette, and the intricate protocols that governed harem life. They learned to walk in silence, to speak only when addressed, to disappear into the shadows when their presence was not required. Those who resisted faced punishments that ranged from reduced rations to solitary confinement in windowless chambers beneath the palace floors. The most promising candidates advanced through a series of increasingly specialized roles. Some became musicians, trained to perform during private gatherings. Others mastered the arts of massage, perfumery, and cosmetics, skills that might catch a sultan's attention during his rare visits to the women's quarters. The exceptional few learned to read and write, preparing them for positions as secretaries or intermediaries between the harem and the outside world. But advancement meant more than acquiring skills. It required navigating a social maze where every gesture carried meaning, every friendship posed potential danger. Women formed alliances based on shared origins or complementary abilities, yet these same bonds could shatter overnight when competition for the sultan's favor intensified. Trust became a luxury few could afford in a world where today's confidant might become tomorrow's rival. The system's most insidious aspect was how it transformed victims into collaborators. Women who achieved positions of authority within the harem became enforcers of the very system that had enslaved them. They selected new arrivals from the slave markets, supervised their training, and administered punishments to those who transgressed palace rules. The oppressed became oppressors, their own suffering transformed into a tool for controlling others. Records from the palace treasury reveal the staggering scale of this human commerce. During the reign of Suleiman the Magnificent, the imperial household purchased over 300 women annually to maintain the harem's population. These transactions were recorded with the same bureaucratic precision applied to military supplies or architectural materials, each entry noting the seller, purchase price, physical description, and intended role within the palace hierarchy. The documentation extended beyond mere commerce into realms that modern minds struggle to comprehend. Palace physicians maintained detailed records of each woman's menstrual cycle, tracking fertility patterns with mathematical precision. When a concubine became pregnant, her condition was monitored by teams of midwives, wet nurses, and medical advisors who reported directly to the Valid Sultan. Every aspect of reproduction fell under state control, from conception through childbirth to the education of royal offspring. Children born within the harem faced fates determined by their gender and parentage. Sons of the Sultan were raised as potential heirs, receiving educations in statecraft, military strategy, and Islamic theology. But this privilege came with a terrible price. Ottoman succession law demanded that only one prince could inherit the throne. Brothers who failed to claim power faced execution or permanent confinement, their lives forfeit to dynastic stability. Daughters enjoyed greater safety but less freedom. Princesses were valuable assets in the empire's diplomatic calculations, their marriages arranged to cement alliances with provincial governors or foreign rulers. They learned early that their bodies belonged not to themselves, but to the state's strategic needs. Love was irrelevant. Personal desire was treasonous. Marriage was diplomacy conducted through flesh and blood. The harem's influence extended far beyond the palace walls. Graduates became wives to governors and generals throughout Ottoman territories, carrying palace culture into the provinces and creating webs of loyalty that strengthened central authority. Yet this same system created vulnerabilities. Foreign spies infiltrated the women's quarters, their loyalties hidden beneath masks of submission. The harem existed under constant surveillance, its inhabitants watched by eunuchs whose castration had severed them from normal desires, leaving only ambition and survival. The Ottoman imperial harem was not a palace of pleasure. It was a factory of power where faith justified flesh and flesh became the currency of empire. Behind walls of marble and gold, human beings were transformed into instruments of state, their lives measured not in years, but in their utility to dynastic survival. The records remain, buried in archives across Istanbul, documenting a system that turned slavery into statecraft and silence into strength. For centuries, the truth was buried beneath romantic fantasies and Orientalist dreams. Yet the ledgers do not lie. The bureaucracy of desire left its mark in every transaction, every punishment, every calculated breeding decision that shaped the fate of millions. In the end, the harem's greatest achievement was not the sultans it produced, but the empire it sustained through the systematic control of human flesh itself.